how long before you give up on a game? This is a question I've been asking myself recently because I wanted to try and play my first Resident Evil game for a Halloween episode, so I put in Resident Evil 4 for the Wii.
Resident Evil.
And I tried. The controls were less than optimal. Like, you would pull out a knife, but it would be like the same movement to move forward, and then I'd end up looking up, and I died an ungodly amount of times, and so I was like, well, maybe I'll have better luck with the GameCube version, because I have that one too. So I plug it in, and it's the same problem, where when I try to use a weapon, the freaking joystick to go forward is the same one to, like, go up and down when you're aiming, and so I gave up, and I think I gave the game roughly about maybe 20 minutes per version, maybe. So I wanted to know from you guys, how long do you guys take to give up on a video game or determine that it's something that you don't want to spend time on? So this is going to be like a rant / like discussion video. So my question is what is a reasonable amount of time to spend on a video game before you can determine whether it's a good game or not? I mean, does it matter if it's retro, if it's modern? Does it matter if it's a really popular game and you want to see what everyone's talking about, or a no-name game that you just randomly picked up? I'd like to think that I like to give my games roughly about like an hour, about 1 hour. I feel like I can usually tell if I'm gonna like a game within 1 hour, with like an asterisk on that. If it's a game with like really heavy story or a really long introduction, then obviously I'm gonna give it a little bit more time. I'm talking like an hour of like actual gameplay, and I think I can usually determine that. But on the other hand, I've been wrong in the past before about games that I've played that I've given an hour. A Link to the Past is a great example of that. I played A Link to the Past to completion a few years ago, and it wasn't the first time I had touched the game, but it wasn't until that moment in time that I was, I think, ready or more receptive to the game, and I ended up loving it. It's definitely in my top 5 Zelda games of all time now. So I've been wrong before. So I don't think there's like a perfect answer, and I think the whole reason I wanted to make this video was just to kind of hear other people in the community sound off on what your opinions are in terms of like what's a reasonable amount of time, like what's a good fair shot at a game, and like what is it that you look for that tells you that you're enjoying the game. I've also had moments though where it's taken me like less than 20 minutes to know that I absolutely love the game. I recently just beat A Link Between Worlds for the 3DS, and I was playing that game like from the get-go. I knew I loved the game. And it's not a platformer, so it wasn't within the genre of my like favorite types of games. So why is it that sometimes we can be really receptive to games and know immediately that we love it? Is that a good like example of like a game that can really capture an audience, or is it strictly preference? Does it have something to do with the mental state that we're in? Do we have to be in a particular mood to be receptive to particular types of games? I don't know. This is all just so all over the place, and that's why I'm making this video, because I'm so lost on like what's a good fair shot. So I'd like to know in the comments down below, what are your guys' like deal breakers? When you're playing a game and something happens, what is your deal breaker? Because I didn't think I had deal breakers until I tried Resident Evil 4. Turns out one of my deal breakers is controls that I cannot get used to, or controls that just don't make sense to me. Because if they don't make sense to me, I'm probably not gonna adapt to those controls, right? I mean, if the control stick is controlling both the direction at which we're swinging the knife or shooting the gun, but it's also the stick that makes you move forward, that doesn't make sense to me. And that might be just a product of the time frame at which the games were released. The GameCube, 2001, the Wii, 2006, and I don't know when the game's released, but that's... I haven't had a lot of trouble going back to retro games and them having some sort of limiting factor, but I guess that kind of, in my head, the in-between, a little bit after the GameCube and before, you know, the more modern consoles like the PS4, I guess there are just some of these like limiting factors, whether it be they were trying to be too realistic, or again, the controls are just too clunky. Maybe like more Xbox era games, if I'd played more of those, maybe I would notice that now. So maybe that's something I need to go back to. But what are your guys' deal breakers? So some things I've learned from this personal experience of mine is not to push myself into liking a game because I have a large backlog and I've got a bunch of other games I can play. So why waste your time playing games that you immediately hate? And that's not to say that you hate it then and you give up on it forever, you sell it, you trade it, whatever. Maybe you can go back to it later. Maybe that just wasn't the right moment in time to do it. Again, maybe your mental mindset wasn't quite there. So I guess what I'm saying is, don't waste your time on games that suck. I would also say a piece of advice I'd like to take for myself is before starting a game, maybe know how much time you're willing to put into it. Maybe figure out how long the game actually is and really kind of set kind of like parameters or boundaries, if you will, on what you're willing to endure before moving on to another title. I'll say this is probably a shorter video. Again, I know I always say that, and I feel like my videos are always like 10 minutes, but it's more of like a rambling, complaints, trying to think through things and reaching out to the gaming community. So I'm really looking forward to your guys' responses, your comments. This video is not meant to be any sort of clickbaity thing or a serious topic of this research that I did. It's really literally just me making bullet points after getting so freaking frustrated last night at the controls of a game and giving up. I've given up on numerous games for numerous reasons. I've said I dislike XCOM because I discovered that those types of games are not my cup of tea. I started Mario RPG a while ago and I'm stuck in an area that's really frustrating to me. I don't want to play games that make me feel negative or frustrated or sad. No, look, games can be challenging and that's great. You have a moment of triumph when you beat it. But a lot of the times, especially, you know, as an adult, I'm looking to find a release. So I need a good balance, and that's my preference. But some people might want that challenge, and that's fine too. Whatever floats your boat, whatever makes you happy, right? But thank you guys so much for watching, and don't forget, a pixelated world awaits. I'll say this one felt a little bit more like a rant or random thoughts. I know my videos aren't always the most like structured ones. I write bullet points and I kind of fly off the handle. I'll try to work on that. I'll try to have a little bit more structure, but I'm really curious to hear the community's thoughts on this very loud fucking stuff.
Samantha's you are queen of the game zone, her realm, her throne, every console known, pixelated princess conquering unknown. In this digital age, her talents are shown. From Minecraft games to Halo's guys, watch her conquer, no surprise. Game with grand dynamic rise, skill unlocked, no disguise. Guys, joystick Jedi with moves unreal.